This evening on The Rock Newman Show, KWIBUKA-25 marks 25 years since the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. As Rwandans at home and around the world commemorate those 100 days of terror, the world also recognizes that Rwanda has come a long way to rebuilding and promoting an African Renaissance. We'll talk about those days and the Rwandan miracle with Rwanda's ambassador to the United States. That's coming up right now on The Rock Newman Show. Welcome to The Rock Newman Show from the campus of historic Howard University right here in the nation's capital. I'm Rock Newman, and it is my desire to inspire you with personal stories of extraordinary achievement. On the evening of April 6, 1994, a plane carrying the presidents of Rwanda and Burundi was shot down over Rwanda's capital city, Kigali, killing all on board. It's alleged that this incident sparked a horrific slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Rwanda's Tutsi population by Hutu extremists. It's been 25 years since those tragic events, and Rwanda has worked hard to recreate and rebrand itself. We'll look back at the 100 days of the Rwanda genocide against the Tutsi and how Rwanda, a nation literally risen from the ashes, has become one of 21st century Africa's most progressive nations, with my special guest, Her Excellency Mathilde Mukantabana, Rwanda's ambassador to the United States. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome here.
Thank you so much for the welcome. Yeah.
I am nervous, and I've been doing this for 6 years, and I've never said that to a guest. And I want to explain why I said I was nervous, and I was nervous thinking about doing this show. In 1993, I went to South Africa to visit Nelson Mandela prior to him becoming president. And we left there and we went to Somalia in what at the time was Civil War torn Somalia. And we played a significant role in delivering medical supplies and food for the refugees. And I was in that camp the entirety of a day. And I left there thinking, my heart was just hurting for the sorrow that I saw, the sadness that I saw, the horrific conditions that I saw. And I remember thinking about Somalia when I started a year later in 1994, seeing news reports of the massacre, of the genocide that was taking place in Rwanda. And that just tore me apart. It literally tore me apart to see it. I remember being so angry at my government, at the U.S. government. Bill Clinton was a popular politician, but I was so angry that my government didn't do more to help. And we'll talk about that during the course of this interview. And I fast forward 12 years later in 2006. This book came out, Left to Tell. I read it from cover to cover without ever putting it down. And it was one of the most impactful books that I've ever read in my life. So thinking about trying to do justice to this interview really made me nervous. I want to thank you again for coming and welcome you again for sitting with me.
Thank you so much. And don't be nervous, because at one point myself, it was very difficult to talk about this particular event.
Yeah.
Not even an event, but what happened in my country 25 years ago.
Yeah.
it didn't come for 2 years. So I understand your hesitation even.
So what I would like to do to give my audience an opportunity to understand, I feel as if to a certain extent I'm somewhat intimately familiar with the story. But I would like for you, please, to sort of set the historical stage as we talk about Rwanda. If we go back, let's say, to the 1930s, 40s or so, to give a little bit of a historical perspective of the colonial influences that was a big part of Rwanda. We're talking about Belgium, we're talking about Germany, we're talking about France. If you could give us just a little tutorial on that time period before we move up to more modern times.
Thank you so much. Rwanda, let me start by saying that Rwanda was there as a nation for a long time. It was a kingdom, you know, very well established kingdom until the 19th century, as you mentioned. Then the Berlin Conference that was dividing up Africa, 1884, 1885. Rwanda was given to Germany. With Burundi and then Tanzania, Tanganyika during that time.
Just that term, Africa was divided up.
Right.
And Rwanda was given to Germany.
That's right. You know, it was, I can always say, we can't go back to history, but it was a continuation of the depleting of Africa of anything. Africa was coming out of 400 years of slavery, then it went into colonialism. It was weakened as a continent. And in the 19th century, Europe decided that it was better to keep the resources in Africa and to keep the labor in Africa. So that's how they divided up the continent of Africa. That was by then weakened. It was weakened in the 19th century. So the whole continent was divided among the major powers in Europe. We are talking about France, we are talking about Germany, Spain, Portugal, and other countries. So we were colonized by Germany until Germany lost World War I. So as you know, when Germany lost World War I, one of the major understanding at the conference that took place, dividing up the major colonies among victorious nations, Rwanda was given as under the new League of Nations that was created after World War I. It was given to Germany, to Belgium.
To Belgium, yes.
Under the mandate. It was not supposed to be a colony. But in essence, what happened is that Belgium really colonized Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo under the same type of colonial power. And that was also, I can say, where really the roots of evil were planted, because
Did you say roots of evil?
Evil,
yes.
leading to genocide. Because you are talking about a country, before colonialism, Rwanda was, as I said, the kingdom, where people lived, you know, and there was social mobility. We had ethnic groups, but that were not set. And actually, all the major groups also shared what we call ethnicity in different ways, clans. So that's why there were many intermarriages. Because people could move freely among groups. So as you know, during colonialism also something, the basis of colonialism was also a strong sense of racism. Racist theories were being developed during the time of colonialism. So when colonial powers came to Rwanda, they installed a racialized society where it didn't exist. So we were divided, the people were polarized. We talked about the majority Hutus, the minority Tutsis, the small Twa, where it didn't exist. So what ended up happening was that identity cards were given, because sometimes even in those categories it was not really, you know, sometimes the people were separated. But certain prerequisites were established to belong to one ethnic group
to
or
make
another.
it there was an official policy of identification cards being given to different groups.
And to tell you the truth, the identity card that I carried myself for a long time, if we speed forward, they became an instrument of death.
Instrument of death, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
If we were called the Tutsi, you were on a roadblock, you were killed. So those are the things that were carried in. Unfortunately, at the end of colonialism and we had independence, the two subsequent administrations were not able to really get rid of those kind of divisions.
Yeah.
So the first administration ended with a coup d'etat. It was President Gregoire Kayibanda who, when he took power, the first thing he did was to kill Tutsis. Some of them were kicked out of the country. That's when we started to take the road to exile.
Yeah.
And the second administration, Habyarimana, the one who died before the genocide started,
yes.
when he came instead, he really strengthened the politics of divisions, including establishing a quota system. So for instance, if we were a Tutsi, during that time, you couldn't go to school. 1% of all the Tutsi could, even secondary school. We are not talking about university. We are talking about even secondary school. You couldn't go to government jobs. You couldn't join the military. So that was systematic. And sporadically, you found a time when they were killing people and kicking them out. I was the wave of 1973. So I left my country in 1973.
Okay.
Just to let you know that it has been a continuous journey. And the genocide of 1994 was the conclusion of what had been taking place for a long time. Yeah, so that's...
so it is often portrayed that this was an uprising that was spontaneous as a result of this accident, some other stuff. But what you're doing to set the record straight is that when you left 21 years earlier in 1973, as a result of some of the policies of the two presidents who had come into power, that had been going on, that this kind of activity had been going on sporadically throughout the country for a couple of decades before.
It had been going on, the politics of oppression within the country, of discrimination against one group, had been going on for a long time. The 1994, and even if you look at the media in Rwanda during that particular time, they were talking about the final solution. They were using the same terminology like the one used in Germany when the Holocaust was taking place.
And government had taken over TV, radio stations, and the rest.
Exactly.
Spewing forth the Hutu majority.
Exactly.
Or the Hutus in power. Spewing forth just anti-Tutsi rhetoric, racism, just sort of the worst, most dehumanizing, degrading of broadcasts.
Exactly.
About the Tutsis.
Yes.
Which
we were called the cockroaches.
Yes.
Even now we had the 10 commandments against the Tutsi. 10 commandments that are there, that are in the journals. Saying what a Tutsi couldn't get. You couldn't marry a Tutsi. You couldn't do this. If you have, all this stuff were official. It was not something or like those extremist groups on the side. Everyone in the country knew about the 10 commandments against the Tutsis. The terms that were used that were reminiscent of the Jewish population when they were talking about vermin, were called cockroaches, were called many different things. So it had been going on for a long time. It's not something that came overnight.
So the scourge of and the demons of colonialism, which in part was racism, which absolutely worked tirelessly to promote the division. It was that scourge and those demons that was effective. It was effective in terms of pitting countrymen against countrymen based on an identity, based on a tribal identity.
Absolutely, yes.
One of the oldest tactics in the land: divide and conquer.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so can you tell me the general sense, just right now? Rwanda is in a magnificent renaissance. But what is the feeling of people who are socially and historically conscious about those who perpetuated that kind of behavior and practice that kind of diabolical racism?
For 25 years, and you've said it beautifully, Rwanda has been building to turn a corner. We've invested, and it was not an easy task.
Yeah.
And we started by forgiving ourselves, Rwandans. We started by doing that. So sometimes when we talk about the politics of reconciliation and the politics of forgiveness, this take a long time, and it takes engagement, and it takes courage. You know, my president was in Southern California last week, and what he said, even as we were asking for people to forgive so we can build a nation, a new nation, sometimes we put more strain on the people who were victims, because they are the ones who could still give something. Yeah. They could give forgiveness. Other people, if you came and you killed everybody, you killed even your own wife if she was in another ethnic group, there was nothing left to give. Yeah. But so you had to go beyond the suffering you had. But that's the history of our nation. So the main reason I'm trying to answer your question, as much as it was not easy even to forgive, you know, especially if you talk in terms of the survivors, forgiving even the international community, because this was a genocide that was in broad daylight.
Yes, yes.
At the time of cable news, people saw what was taking place. Yeah. And usually because of the covenants and laws that were passed after the Holocaust, when it was a genocide, it was a crime against humanity, meaning that all the nations should have stood up.
Yes.
They didn't in Rwanda. They didn't. So it took a long time for people to understand this. But it's, as we started to move to build our nation, also we had to let go of other things, including to see who was willing to stand with us as we are trying to move, and to try also to forgive, you know, whether they did what they didn't do, or even our own people. So it's a continuous journey that many generations will continue to take, but we are in a very good place. Because for us, if we talk about what we were able to achieve, because it's that sense of forgiveness that people were able to bring. Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I want to ask, how you would respond to those who would position that, yes, there was colonial powers, you know, practicing demonic policies and theories, but that on some level, there has to be accountability by those who practice this inhumanity, these inhumane acts. So a question I have is, how do you respond to that? Because I think one has to give credit. That's not an unfair question. It's a difficult question. How do you respond?
I would say that we are actually not focusing on the international community, but we can focus on the Rwandan community. And the Rwandan community is what we have done. For us to be able to go where we have been, there are three things that this is not my own creation. It's really the principles that drove our country, that you'll hear the president say, because this was his direction, his vision. The first thing was to stay united, stay together, no matter what, grain, chaff, whatever we have. We don't have any choice of saying these are bad people, these are, and to look at it from differences that happen in our country. But there were prerequisites to bring that kind of understanding of unity, including justice. Because there was a prerequisite of justice. The justice that we implemented in our country, what they call Gacaca. Gacaca is traditional justice that was revived to judge all the genocide cases. You are talking about more than 1 million people who were implicated. More than 1 million. There's no country in the world that faced that.
Yes.
But we understood without a sense of justice, we will never move. And that justice has to be also a justice that was bringing also forgiveness if necessary, and people to come, to be seen among their peers, and then to move forward. And people would account for their sins, and then we, as a nation, we reconcile. So justice was important, but also to give a sense of hope.
Yeah.
To,
before you go to hope, if we could stay with justice, can you give me an example, or like a specific example of what would be defined as justice from what you said was the traditional form? What's the name of it?
Gacaca.
Okay.
Gacaca is a well-known justice in Rwanda. It's what we call some of the homegrown solutions we brought after genocide.
Yeah.
And that was a big one because it really was able to, for us to move forward.
Yeah.
After
So can you give me an example of a perpetrator that was known to be guilty and what that justice system, how did that work? What happened to that person under that philosophy of justice?
So that philosophy of justice, that tried millions of cases. We've just closed the Gacaca courts. We finished. So what they did, let's say someone killed 50 people.
Yes.
In the end, they did.
Yeah.
There are quite a few people who killed 50, who killed whatever.
Yeah.
So the crimes were classified. So there was a long time of preparation. Number one, to prepare the judges that were selected among the peers, people of integrity, people who were selected among Rwandans themselves.
Right.
And they were also in villages where people live. So they were, if for instance, you had the Gacaca courts every single village. What they did was, the people who came to, the witnesses were called.
Yes.
Sometimes even among the people, the family of the people, the perpetrator, they would come, they would say what they've seen. The judges and other people around would look at the case, and then they render judgment. There was a range in judgment. For instance, you could have killed, also raped, also destroyed the property. So the crimes were ranked according to their severity during that particular time. And then a prison sentence was given. You know that one of the things Rwanda did after genocide was also to end the death penalty. Because quite frankly, given the way people killed and the incredible devastation it brought to the country, unless you were ready to kill everyone, it was so terrible. So death penalty was, so people will be given, prison terms. Some were given community work. The people who accounted for their crimes and asked for forgiveness, sometimes the terms were reduced, and so on and so forth. So there are many like that, including in my own family. So I can give you cases. But
so to think that a policy of capital punishment was removed, as a result, there are so many people killed. And so many people guilty of killing. That if one meted out justice that was capital punishment, that was the death penalty, you'd lose so many people in the country that you wouldn't even exist.
Our country technically almost died because if you lose 1 million people, during that time, Rwanda had about a population of around 7 million people. 3 million left the country. They were implicated in genocide. But even the people left in the country were very desperate, hopeless, helpless, and most of them wounded, even if it was not physically, but also psychologically. We didn't have any, really. And then, to tell you the truth, we are talking about the people who are dead. But what died that was even worse was the psyche of the people, the ethos. I mean, there was nothing sacred in Rwanda. The majority of the people died in churches because 90% of Rwandans belong to churches, especially the Catholic Church that Immaculée was talking about. And you go, you are trying to find a safe haven, you thought you were going to be protected. And that's where the majority die. If you go to Rwanda, they became the burial grounds, the churches. the institution that was there to protect the UN, the few troops that were there were removed.
Yeah.
They didn't save Rwandans.
Taken
away from the country.
The last line of defense.
Yeah.
Left.
And even the family. So all the major institutions, you don't have any state to protect you.
Yeah.
You don't have any church to protect you.
Yeah.
You don't have even the international community, and plus the family. Sometimes the family also was implicated. The people who belong to other ethnic groups sometimes it could be also implicated.
So you know, you talk about those dying, and there's a theory that says sometimes that when a woman is raped, it's like dying every year. It's like dying multiple times. Yeah. So part of the practice of this genocide was killing, but also indiscriminately, widespread, wide-scale raping.
Exactly.
And so those women who did not die, who were raped, were those Tutsi women were raped by Hutu men. And so the question then that you have on the ground is the survivors carrying the seed of those who murdered the family that this woman who got pregnant by the Hutu man, it killed her family.
Exactly.
And so as we look back throughout history, there's way too many examples of inhumanity. But this incident in 1994, sort of that 100 days, and one of the reasons that this book was so very difficult to put down is because Immaculée eloquently described what is the ultimate personal horror of hiding in a bathroom with other women for 91 days and hearing outside, just outside under the tree, she had a brother. And folks, if you got a queasy stomach, don't even listen to what I'm getting ready to say, but she had a brother who was a lawyer. And he was captured. And right outside of her window where she was staying, hiding. And she heard the Hutus talking about making fun of him being a lawyer, and that they wanted to see what the brain of a lawyer looked like. And then they proceeded to examine it at the hands of machetes.
Those are the incidents that were part of genocide. That was horrible. And when you were talking about even Tutsi women who were raped, the majority, almost 600,000 were raped, but there are those who were injected with HIV blood knowingly.
Yeah.
So there are those who contracted HIV. We have some of the survivors here, even in the United States, who talk about that. But also, what you mentioned about the children. Can you imagine the children? Initially, even when we talk about our reconciliation, think about the intimate reconciliation with these women, to have your child, who is an innocent victim as well,
of course,
but who is a constant reminder of your victimization.
Yes.
This is a kid who is born out of rape, horrible rape, where they have killed your husband, and you are doing this. So those are stories of Rwanda. And maybe also, if you look at how women were able to surmount this and be able to rebuild the society, to blend, to do this. I can tell you one of the biggest survivor group of women who were infected with HIV and who had the children also were able to have agency and to be able to help in the rebuilding of their country, even under the circumstances, and to see that that's the history of Rwanda is the history of resilience. The history that you are telling about Immaculée has been duplicated many times.
So those are some unimaginable psychological scars, and those are the kind of scars that would contribute to serious mental illness. So one of the questions I have in looking at Rwanda today and what many are calling the miracle of Rwanda today is, were there concerted efforts, organized people to come in to deal with the psychological aspects and the mental illnesses that would be caused from these crimes against humanity?
That's a very good question. And quite frankly, I would tell you that obviously our health matters are the biggest priority in Rwanda, because we were dealing with much, including HIV, including many things, where we focus on health. However, the main reason for our recovery came from the caring of Rwandans for each other. The president was saying, and this is what I would repeat, it's because everyone became a family. Once you lose, there's nothing more isolating than a genocide, because you lose everyone. You know, all of us lost at least like 70 members of our family. You are left with nothing. But without a country that has come and embraced the people, gave them hope. And giving hope is not just about saying I'm supporting you. It's also making sure that you have an economic leverage to help you. You study the socioeconomic programs where you are able to go to the doctor. You are trying to create universal health care. All these things were helpful, and they helped people to heal better than if we had come with medicine. The medicine was the family. It was the reconstitution of a family, a Rwandan family. And this is really something we don't take it for granted. All the years, if you can give any qualifying thing to our leadership and why we love our president, it's because no matter how much the suffering that Rwandan people went through, they said, this happened, the Rwandans did it, but we can also get ourselves of this. And he set a vision. This is how we can continue. Sometimes people discuss the fact that how come it was the government doing it? Who was going to do it? We didn't have a population that was standing on their feet. 1994, people were dead. Or the ones who were not dead, they were in a state of, how would I say it? We were catatonic. We were not really functional. As I told you myself, who was far, I was not in Rwanda. But it took me 2 years to talk about this genocide.
So and I wanted to ask you.
You know, it was a very devastating thing.
Devastating.
And if we didn't have a government that said, okay, we are dead, maybe we might even die, you know, but you can pull yourself out of the ashes. You can really go to better than you have been, but you have to be together. So the second thing that I didn't mention when we said what to get out of genocide and so on, we said that unity. And I started with justice, but also there was the whole being accountable. Each Rwandan is called to be in that experience.
To be what?
To be part of that experience of reviving, of building, of doing whatever we are doing.
And you use that word accountability.
It's very big,
Right.
And the last one is to think big. We don't want to go back or to even be complacent about what we achieve. We have to continue. We need to be a better nation than it was ever, you know, before we came. And each Rwanda has to contribute and participate and have all the benefits of what the country can offer.
Well, I certainly want to get, we're going to talk about KWIBUKA-25.
Right.
But before we do that, though, as you said, you had left in 1973. Had you gone back between 73 to 21 years between 1973 and 94? Had you gone back to the country at any time?
No. So we were just coming to boarding school, like, because we were a Catholic. And we were kicked out of school because we were Tutsi. We never saw our parents. The parents were still in the country. We were kicked out. I went to Burundi, like many of my...
So you were forced out?
You
were forced out. So they came to the school maybe and got you and just...
Other students
so you didn't get
and
a
the
chance
government...
to say goodbye to your parents or anything?
No. We left in groups. we ended up in refugee camps in Burundi.
Yeah.
Because it was like a walking distance. You know, Burundi
Sure.
and Rwanda
Yeah.
are pretty close.
Yeah.
We ended up in Burundi, then eventually I finished, we were put in refugee camps, we went to school in Burundi. Then eventually I ended up in California for, you know, I came to join somebody, but also to go to school. So that's how I, you know, but many of my colleagues or my classmates ended up in the same situation.
Yeah.
Some went to Congo, other people went to Burundi, other went to Uganda.
So you didn't go back, but did you maintain contact with your family?
Yes, we were sporadically writing.
Right.
And, you know, so we were hoping that we'd go back to the country, and 1994 happened, and that was the end of it. They died.
So as a personal reflection, how many in your family did you lose?
The close family members, because we had a big family.
Yeah.
And they lived in the same vicinity, in the southern part of the country. So, and most of them died in my home.
Yeah.
So we have a little chapel we built. So under the chapel we have 70 people, 70. So you are talking about my parents, my brothers and sisters, my cousins, my uncles. So the close ones were in that particular place. They got it together. So the younger siblings died, you know, because I was, you know. So, and that was the same for my husband. The whole family was devastated, and every Rwandan who lived in California. So that's how actually we started also the association, because it was like creating a new family for us.
Yeah.
But
well, obviously, you know, death creates what typically is the greatest grief that of the human experience.
Yes, yes.
So this kind of death here, I just want to see, you know, to have you, if you can, to explain, you knew what was going on and you knew your families was victims of this madness. I know it took you 2 years to even talk about it, but while it was happening, can you share how you felt?
We were in a total state of disbelief. We couldn't, it's okay. We were all saying it could have been amazing if it was like a tsunami or a plane crash.
Yeah.
Or anything.
Sure.
But the way it was happening, number one, we knew it was horrible, because some of them we were still talking on the phone while they were killed. The second thing was that these are people we knew who were killing them. I grew up with the killer of my parents.
You grew up with the person?
The person actually who killed my parents, we thought he would have saved them because he was their godson. He was the godson of my father.
Oh, my God.
So what I'm saying is, the first time I went back to Rwanda, I said I couldn't even look at anybody because I was afraid of meeting.
That you would be looking at somebody who just helped slaughter, kill, murder your family.
Yeah, and it's strange because I think eventually the blood of our loved ones also helped us to really understand what it needs to build our country. But initially when we went, because we went initially for that justice I was telling you about, you were even afraid of walking. Because you said if I walk, I might step on a bone that is my father. You didn't know where they had thrown them. So that was a very, it was an experience that you don't wish on anybody, because number one, especially if you haven't lost anyone close to you and suddenly they die at the same time.
Yeah. And
they die not because they were sick, or they die not because, but someone has gone there and is killing them with machetes.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can, nightmares were part of it. I had, we were talking about my friends, some of them went to try to see psychiatrists here in the United States and in Canada.
Yeah.
And I know 2 psychiatrists who said, I'm sorry, I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, I can't.
Yeah.
Those are stuff that...
it's beyond the human experience.
Yeah, it's
that
beyond what I can give you.
prepared to even deal with.
Yeah, so it was a very... it was a dark night in Rwanda for everybody. So it was, and maybe because we knew, I mean, we were the oldest. The other ones were younger students in California. So we had really to wake up, and especially to understand our country is trying to do the same. You know, like our president, you probably asked, he was a young man too.
That your country is
it's
trying
our
to
country.
wake up.
You know, the country is waking up. It's trying to hear us. It's trying to do this. We need to help somehow. So we need to also to garner enough energy, enough, you know, resilience to be able to do that.
Okay, so we've been talking about the ultimate dark cloud of a human experience. So, at some point, through some force of nature and the absolute best of the human spirit, Rwandans were able to start to pull back that cloud that had covered your humanity for so long, and to start to behave in a miraculously humane way. Can you please describe what was the spark for that and take us from when that first happened and walk us on through now, up until now?
Let me tell you where the spark started. There was a time when people thought the whole nation was dead. Really?
With good reason.
If you were there, you didn't think there was anyone who was left standing.
But anyone who would be left to tell.
But in our history, there was that light, the shining light that was still there. And it came tangibly by the leadership of our president, who was the military leader who stopped genocide. So when they stopped genocide, you remember, you know, I mean, the whole country was going through the grief. They are dying, they are doing this, the UN has left. People are calling for aid, no one is coming. RPF was able to, Rwanda Patriotic Front was able to stop that genocide. And once they were able to save certain people and to say, yeah, we can be okay. I mean, you are wounded, you are this. There are people who have done this to you. But out of this, we can start to revive our nation. You know, obviously, they started also to create emergency programs to tend for the wounded, the ones who were not eating anything, the kids who were in the forest, all those stuff were done. So that was the light. And I think because, and then also on a philosophical basis, it's not even philosophical, on a tangible basis, we're talking about people who, you are waking up. I mean, if I had gotten to my country during that particular time, and if you go by your feelings and you find someone who has killed all your family, the primary instinct will be revenge. If I could, you know, at least put my hand on this thing. The first thing to save our nation, and you have to understand also those people who stopped genocide had people who were dying in the country, who were their relatives. But the first thing that was passed as a law was no revenge. Even if you've lost somebody, if you take the law in your own hands, you are going to be punished. So that stopped revenge killings that were normal and that could happen at any place. So once we started to, you know, when you come to a country like that, and you know, you have probably some examples in history that are not as dire examples, but you remember, like in 1932, when you know, 29, when the Great Depression was happening. You know, that time people are flirting with the idea of violence, of extremism, because you are not living a good life. And when someone comes and gives hope and confidence, and to show you that there's still a future, that person was our leadership. So that's why I'm saying, the light. You can bring other things. We've done many things. We've empowered the women. The women also who were part of the country building. But it was mostly...
With that comment, let me interject this, because I don't know what we're going to get to. This is moving so fast. Is that right now Rwanda represents for women the greatest democracy and diversity in government of any nation in the world. If our research is correct, right now 63% of official government is women.
They are women, and so this is why you understand all these things, because we understood that the value we put, our recovery, our future, our development will come when we empower everybody, not just one man or a woman. So I think it's one of your someone who said the human rights, women's rights is the human rights. We took it very, very carefully. I mean, very seriously. So that's what happened. Women, for us, are part of that humanity that needs to reconstruct Rwanda and to rebuild. So that's what happened. But also, they were not given, it was not like subjects being given rights. They also were participants in the recovery. Participants, even when they've been really, I mean, if you look at one single group that was victimized, especially during the genocide.
So the president with whom you serve now, give us, tell us a little bit about him, because having come from the depths of hell, and to have the country to turn around as it has now, that just is not done without some, almost deity-like leadership. So tell us about the man who runs your country now.
So I can say, first of all, is he has all those qualities you are talking about. Someone was saying, I think they were mentioning one of the biggest leaders in this country, and they say sometimes in a century, you are lucky when you can meet someone who feels all the qualities of leadership. Our president inherited a country that was one of the toughest to govern in any setting of the world.
Any time in history.
Any time in history. And when he was coming, he was a young person. But the characteristics and the qualities that drove him to build one of the best nations was that from day one, he was not looking for his own personal interest. Even those policies I was telling you about, it was to work for Rwanda. He said it's never going to be like a band-aid therapy. It's a tough, uphill battle.
You got to dig deep and go to the root of the problem.
You need to go there, go to the wound, try to heal, but I'll be with you at every step. So he extended himself to be with the people. If you go to Rwanda, sometimes you'll see it, and I hope you'll come eventually, is that even at a time when there's no elections, usually here you see I'm not saying here in the South, but usually you see leaders interacting with the people during time of elections.
Right.
No, not in Rwanda. Our president is always with the people, whether they are doing community work, whether he goes to visit them in each of the villages. And he's the one who is the best person, who is cheering them on as they do a good job and they do this and that, but also making them accountable. You are doing it. He's giving agency to the people. They are not subjects. These are people who have also to come in the reign of building. And also preparing the new generation, especially, to taking over by giving all the tools necessary. Education is, if you look at, for instance, some of the biggest things we invest upon are education, but also mentorship of the youth, many different things. Because we understand that, especially our country is a young country. We need to invest in our youth. And to understand that he did it, he was young, there was no one investing in him during that time, is an amazing leader. That's why we can say, and to this day, he has been always, whenever he made the promises, he delivered. That's one of the things. People trust this president.
Please let your president know that he has a standing invitation
Thank you.
to sit in this chair that you're in any time of the year, any time of the month, of the day. If we have to come in here at 3 o'clock in the morning to do a show, let your president know that he's always welcome here at Howard University and WHUT's TV studios.
It will be an honor. And I'm going to let him know. But it's really amazing.
Please do. Yeah. So look, you know, folks talk about the shining hill on the city, the shining city on the hill. Let's talk about Kigali for a moment. Let's talk about Rwanda's capital right now. And, you know, from, again, this darkness, what one finds when they come to your capital city.
You come to my capital city, you find an amazing metropolis. It's well done, the cleanest. I don't want to say it because it's maybe to brag, but
that's all right. Just go and let it rip.
Yeah, but it's one of the cleanest. State capital.
Yeah.
But also the whole country. And this is the main reason I'm insisting on cleanliness, because it's a part of what Rwandans are doing. It's because people have ownership.
Yeah. Yeah.
For us, we are proud of a country that is clean.
Yes.
And that has also what we call the homegrown solutions, including what they call umuganda. Umuganda is a community work. Has helped our country to turn around. Like, for instance, building schools, the roads, but also cleaning the city. Yeah. So we are proud because we have, and everyone from the president to every single person in each village on the last Saturday, they stop what they were doing and we do our country. Yeah. So depending upon the needs of each of the jurisdictions we are looking at. Yeah. So Kigali is an amazing city. It's attractive. It's also based upon the interest we have in tourism. Yes. Because it attracts, we've developed what they call MICE. MICE is the meeting, incentives, and conventions. So Rwanda has been very attractive in bringing major conferences on the continent. So like the World Economic Forum was in Rwanda, African Union, Transform Africa, that is going to be the whole tech world come. But also now next year we are also hosting the Commonwealth, or the countries. So
I am obviously there had to have been international investment to help Rwanda to rebuild. So who has been most supportive in the nations of the world to help Rwanda to get back on its feet?
Let me tell you, we are open as a country. It has been multidimensional. This country is a big, you know, we enjoy a very good relationship with United States. Okay. But we are trying to increase even the direct investment. Sure. They are going there, especially in energy and infrastructure, but especially in schools, you know, like programs. Sure. For instance, one example I can give you, because we are also big on technology. And in entrepreneurship, for instance, Carnegie Mellon has a campus in Rwanda, a graduate campus of engineers. Okay. That is also
Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah. So we have quite a few schools that have brought programs to Rwanda. Right. So partnerships are key for us and what we are doing. And obviously, also since you are a good school, it wouldn't be a bad idea to start something very strong in what we can do with the country. But that's what I'm saying is we enjoy many, and the tourism. Yes. You know, I don't know if you know, but we are the last country where we have preserved the last surviving gorillas. And conservation is big. Right. We were lucky to be given, I think Ellen DeGeneres, you know, she just gave a couple of millions to just expand the campus where people can go and see the gorillas. Right. Every September we have what they call naming ceremony, where we name the young gorillas. So it's an amazing ceremony if you want to come and cover it, but it will be a good one for you to come to Rwanda. You might even end up...
So that's an invitation?
Yeah, you might even end up giving a name to one of the small gorillas and give your own name. It's a
okay.
Yeah. Okay. But we have many different things, national parks, museum. Yeah. So we are developing tourism, but also expanding our infrastructure. Yeah. Rwanda Air, that is our national carrier, is going to start flying to New York. Yes. Hopefully it will come to Washington, D.C. very soon as well. So we have tried to, our country is small, but it's linked. Yeah. And we are also playing our part in Africa, you know, African, you know, connection.
Yeah.
Our president was a very big proponent when he was the president of African Union last year of the African Free Trade Area.
Yes.
Now they have signed, so we are going to start the mechanism of doing that. In this African community, he's the president now of the East African community.
Ambassador.
So anytime we want to come, you know, and you are welcome to come and enjoy.
I most appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
And let me say, as we wrap up here, that I start each of my broadcasts by saying that I hope to inspire you with stories of extraordinary personal achievement. And that goes out, that we have accomplished that today, not of one person like an ambassador or just of the president, but I take my hat off and pay tribute to the people of Rwanda. When it is said that there is a Rwanda miracle, what that is saying is that the people of Rwanda have behaved in a way that demonstrates and shines a light on the highest of our humanity after coming out of an experience and overcoming the lowest of humanity. And for that, the world, the nation, the world should absolutely pay tribute. You are a wonderful example, and thanks again for joining us. For more information on this program or any other program produced by WHUT, go to WHUT.org. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye. God bless. We'll see you the next time.
This program was produced by WHUT, Howard University Television, and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.